Hey everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Bastock and Batchelor Bullshit Busters. I'm Simon Batchelor.
I'm Adam Bastock.
And this week we are joined by Emma Mills-Sheffield, and she is a consultant, business coach and all-round productivity person. And today she's going to be helping us talk about the question of, is productivity a case of simply working longer and harder? So Emma, what are your thoughts on that sort of statement about productivity?
Wrong, completely wrong, Simon.
Hooray!
Excellent.
Hey,
there we go.
finished.
The bullshit is busted. Thanks for joining us.
Same time next week. No, it's definitely wrong, I have to say. So there's a big kind of myth around businesses that cut staff and then they expect everyone else to do more with less. It's hideous. I've been there. It's no fun whatsoever. But productivity is just about working smarter. It's about being clever with what you do, what you focus on, what's strategic, what you really need to get done. It's not about putting more hours in front of the laptop. I've worked, 15, 18 hours on the trot. I've been pretty useless, to be honest. I was useful earlier in the day, not all completely useless. But it's, once you kind of reach that time when it's almost people are still in the office because they feel they have to be, because they have to be seen, because there's a deadline and everyone has to be kind of one-upmanship. It doesn't work.
Would I be correct to say like presenteeism is that kind of idea of like you're in the office to be for the sake of being there? And I think that goes for probably employees as well as self-employed, where it's you're there but you're not actually doing anything particularly useful. Would that be correct? Or?
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of two issues with the employees. Presenteeism is unfortunately sometimes seen as necessary from leadership, but also it's a rite of passage in some industries and some roles. So you might have massive graduate intakes and they do their day job and then they work on the sales afterwards and they're working till midnight, which means everyone else has to try and shift their hours to suit. Whereas when you're self-employed, you haven't got that presenteeism issue, but I think it's still ingrained that we need to be in front of the laptop, and if we're not, then we're not actually achieving.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some kind of social norms that have popped up, and I think particularly since everybody has been working from home, that actually we should all be working longer to get more done, and we should all be, learning another language and, learning basket weaving and doing all these other hobbies that we've supposedly been hiding away from years, on top of trying to run our own business or, promote our business, or especially if you're an employee, I wonder how that workload management has shifted. I mean, have you seen cases where it's just gone completely the other way, where people have ended up with nothing to do, or is it almost exclusively for you where you're seeing it completely the other way, where people are just putting huge expectations on themselves?
Generally massive expectations. So if you're self-employed, you'll know what the struggles have been over the last few months of making sales, keeping clients, making sure you're still successful. But also for furloughed employees as well, that's been a challenge. So employed and still working, super busy. But furloughed employees have been free, basically. But then they still feel they want to achieve something, because you would. It's not a holiday. It's not time that you can just go and travel and kick back and have a nice time. There's still an innate sense of, crikey, I've been given this time. What am I going to do? Because I need to find another job at the end of it, or will I be going back? And if so, what am I going to do in the meantime? Because there's only so much sourdough you can make or post on Instagram.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, it's banana loaves. Oh, God. Yeah. I don't know what the fuss was about that, because I always get grief if I make banana bread, because it means we've got old bananas in the fruit bowl and then, they're just about to die. Yeah. But it seems to have been a thing in lockdown. I don't know why.
We've got to get rotten fruit at the exact point that it's suddenly acceptable to make cake with it. I've never quite got it.
Yeah, cake you never actually buy, but you can make it quite happily and just live off it for 3 meals a day.
I think also it is sort of the most unhealthy thing you can do to a banana, pretty much. Is just combine it with eggs, butter and whatever else goes in, not much else really. But I think the thing that I think people struggle with is that expectation that they should be doing something. And I remember in my first job was in a factory, and that was very much a case of, well, if you're in the factory, then it's your shift. So you literally are only productive when you're in the factory because you are operating a machine. So I think that kind of ingrains in people very early on, especially if your first job is in a supermarket or is in a bakery, for example, and you literally do have to go to work in order to do your job.
Yeah.
Then I think maybe that's where that stems from.
I think
And
so.
then maybe how does that change when you get into an office, more office-based role? Are people just trying to apply the same? Are people trying to apply the same logic to that? Do you think?
I think so. And we were busy at school, busy at university. You have to be doing to be achieving. That's the kind of mantra. And then when you have your holidays, you can kick back because you deserve it, or you get a job because you need to earn the money and want to stay out of the house because of the endlessly long, ridiculous holidays that students get. But but I think it is ingrained in us. And I mean, I feel guilty if I sit around and read, thinking, well, why am I reading when I haven't done everything else? And that should be okay. I should just give two fingers to the ironing and think, I don't give a shit. It's still going to be there tomorrow, or in 3 weeks. But you kind of don't feel you can justify kicking back. And I don't know if it's generations before us that were always busy. They were homemaking, or they were either out working, or if they were home, they were homemaking, and so they were always busy.
Yeah, and I wonder if we're just filling that gap. I mean, I always refer to everything I have to do in my house as just life admin, because it makes it feel more work-based, and then it does feel like something I can legitimately put off and not pressurise myself for, because it feels like part of my to-do list that I'm supposed to be fitting in. So, but I guess, especially with people working from home, that the pressure is on to keep all of those plates spinning, isn't it? You know, I've got to manage if you've got kids or people you're caring for, whatever. You've got all of that to deal with on top of your work. And I wonder if that is part adding to that pressure. But are there any things that you think people can do to help sort of manage that, to get round this kind of self-added pressure that people are putting on themselves?
Yeah, definitely. Be sensible, and also be nice to yourself and your family, because we were supposed to learn Mandarin, basket weaving, hula hooping. We were supposed to get fit, lose 2 stone. What else were we going to do? Stop drinking.
Yeah.
We were going to do all of these great things, but not many people have done all of them, and not many people have done any of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
And there's been sort of studies done around the collective trauma of COVID and how it's actually affected people. Look at the news, it's constantly coming in, and it's still coming in months and months later, and it will keep doing it for a few more months. So people are generally slightly on edge, tired. And I think we've come through the worst of that piece of it. We had that adjustment where everyone went indoors, had to work from home, had to homeschool. Then we kind of had a bit of a settling period, and now some people are back out, some aren't. So there's been a real balance between where we were before, where we went into with the beginning of COVID, and where we are now. But it's still important to have a perspective. This isn't normal, and if you set those really lofty goals of achieving 20 new things, whereas if you actually got up and got dressed this morning, and that is an achievement for where you are right now, that's being productive. And you've got these kind of two ends of the spectrum. And I think there's always a sensible point round about the middle where you say, okay, if I want to learn Mandarin, I'm going to have to build it into my day. Is it really something I want to do? And if it is, brilliant, go for it. But also you've got everything else to do. So I have heard of cases where you've got somebody who's employed, doing a full-time job, and they've also got 5 children at home of different ages needing homeschooling. Now, just think about the logistics and the mental stress. That's a massive undertaking. And so we seem to think that our situation's unique. It's a tough one because everyone's gone through this. There's sort of another saying that we're all in the same boat, but we're not. We're all in the same storm, but we're all in different boats. So if you've got a home office, you've got a garden, you've got peace and quiet, well, brilliant, good for you. But if you're in a house share and you're working off the end of your bed, it's very different, and kids around as well, small children. Everyone's got a really, really different situation. So I think get your own perspective on what you think is normal and what you want to achieve, because you can't measure yourself against other people. And it's so important to just stop, to take time with the family, and or not take time with the family if they're driving you mad. That's also fine. But to sleep and exercise, and people's sleeping patterns are out of whack because you're not exercising as much, and so you're not walking to the office or walking to meetings. You're not out and about at the gym. So it's weird, sleep is weird. People are drinking too much, eating strange banana bread 3 times a day. It's kind of, everything's just so out of kilter.
Yeah.
That I think we give ourselves a really hard time. But there are ways and means of being more productive.
Yeah.
It's just about being really intentional in what you do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of business owners, particularly sort of solo entrepreneurs, I think often, even without realising it, set themselves a very large goal to achieve, to give them permission to let themselves off when they don't achieve it. And I feel like that's something I'm particularly guilty of saying, like, I'm definitely going to get all of this stuff done this week. And then I look back at the end of the week and I go, oh, well, I didn't get all of that stuff done, but I never could have anyway. So it's just my fault for setting myself too much to do. Oh, well, next week I'll learn. And then you never do. And I think it's that thing of as soon as you are realistic with how many things you can actually get done in the week, then that sense of actually achieving what you set out to achieve, that is really good to get into. But it's so easy to drop that habit without sort of accountability or support. And I think if you're suddenly plunged into working from home, or particularly in my case was living at work, it's if you own your own business, you can't work from home, you live at work. There is no off unless you physically lock your laptop in a safe and give your partner the key. It's not,
or almost go camping in a storm, which we nearly did in the summer, because we have to get away, we have to just leave the house, or else you just gravitate back to the laptop all the time.
It does. It's amazing. I think also one thing I managed to do quite early on was to put on my phone in the Gmail app on my business accounts that after 6 p.m. it doesn't push any notifications till 8 a.m. the next morning. And you can just set when the notifications come through. And that was a revelation. That was an absolute game changer, because it means you don't get, billing notification from whatever American service at like 10 o'clock in the evening, because that's
you don't want that then.
Well, no, you know what I mean? You just...
I wait for those.
Yeah, exactly. Woo. But I think, that's also another one, is the dreaded push notification in the middle of your relaxing evening when someone else who thinks they're being productive sat at home smashing out some emails at 9 o'clock at night, who hasn't yet worked out that there's a schedule button so they can send them the next morning, can just absolutely railroad your evening.
That's definitely been a big part. What I've struggled with is just that the kind of automated audit notifications which come in at all times of the day, or like alerts and kind of those based systems, where it is just this kind of constant background noise that is very hard to escape from, unless you do kind of put those systems and structures in place, which I've not really done yet successfully. I'm kind of getting there, and there's been certain well-being apps, stuff that I'm using, which is kind of helping, but I still think there's a long way to go in terms of cutting it all off at, say, like 6, 7 p.m. Because as you say, if you're working from home, it is just I walk into this room, I sit down, and then a number of hours later, depending on that day, I kind of leave again. And I know it's not helpful, I know it's not structured, but it is kind of just how I not have to get through it, it's how I am getting through it, because I don't have that necessary kind of external switch where I can just leave and go somewhere else quite as easily.
I think that's the challenge, because our commute has been about 20 feet.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you justify everything, and you go, right, I'm going to work till 5:30, that's a good time, no 6. Oh, actually, 7:30, I'm still working.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Well, I commute home now. I'm going to walk 20 feet to the kitchen. Great, now I'm going to start cooking. Feels like work still. I've sort of chopping things in anger, thinking I'm still working. It's like I don't want to, but it's really hard to justify not doing something. Like I said, you sit and read a book and everyone's hungry. It's like, well, what is there? Oh yeah, you've got legs and arms. You can cook. But we kind of make a rod for our own back, I think. And we don't have that time when you can listen to a podcast on the way home. half-hour walk home, listen to, an Audible and just relax. And then you come in and you go, busy day, darling? Yes, lovely, wonderful. Right, let's go and do something fun.
Yeah.
We don't do that because we don't have that. Like you said, you're living at work. You don't really stop properly.
Yeah, I found the only way that you can kind of switch off after that working day is to sort of fake a commute if you don't have one. So to actually just go and walk somewhere, like a loop around your house for half an hour and put a podcast on and do what you would normally do. So you go out of the house and you come back, but when you come back, you try not to just think of a load of emails to send for half an hour. If you would normally have a commute to try and not simulate that, but just
go and sit in traffic for half an hour.
Yeah, just go and sit in your car and listen to the radio, and just hope for the best. But I think it's just that sort of, even if you just try and physically move somewhere else and do something else. I mean, I found the lockdown particularly difficult because I don't work productively at all when I'm at home because there is an infinite number of other things that I could be doing except for the things, and it's that avoidance, isn't it, tactics. So for me, I had to move to a co-working space as soon as I could because I don't work well at home, and it's because I can leave my computer, I can physically walk away from it, and it's there, and but I've been so much more productive and got so much more done because one thing I sort of live to when I'm always thinking I've got too much to do is to work as if you're going on holiday tomorrow.
Yes.
Because you suddenly prioritise the stuff. It's like, actually, if I'm not in tomorrow, what's going to happen? I need to do that, and that. Brilliant. Right, everything else is done.
Absolutely. And that's a great thing with to-do lists. You just pick out the top 5 things and the top 3 and then the one thing. Just do it. Get it done.
Yeah.
And there's loads of things, tips and tricks around that because there's a lot of... I think it's quite psychological. There's sort of the burden that we put on ourselves. But it's psychological as to what you have to do. The fact that you can do anything else apart from work because you're at home, but then all you do is beat yourself up that you haven't done the thing you should have done.
Yeah.
So
and then you end up working late.
Yeah.
Because you did the washing up and put the washing on for an hour in the afternoon. And then you're like, well, I still haven't got the one thing I need to do done. So you sit there and do it all evening.
The one thing that stands a chance of making any money whatsoever.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We did a lot of park walking. It's kind of like, right, let's go out to the park. And it's a crap park, but it's fine because it's out. But then digging holes in the garden was another thing. We did all sorts of gardening. I think the neighbours thought we were burying bodies. Said to us, right, come on, dig another hole.
Just do something.
Why?
Yeah.
Just because we have to do something.
Yeah.
That's outdoors, that's different, that's not work because, you notice it in your demeanour and everything. You just sort of hunch up from about there upwards and you just constantly, square eyes.
Yeah.
Definitely felt that the past few weeks. Like waking up with shoulder issues and being like, I know what that is.
Yeah.
It's from not standing up for 6 hours or whatever.
I think we're going to look like chickens. I'm convinced. Because I think we all kind of do that. Heads forwards.
The bobbing of the...
Yeah. I think chiropractors are going to be laughing, aren't they, soon?
Yeah. As soon as they can get people back in, they'll be... Yeah, I think... So, in terms of any sort of tips or sort of takeaway tips for people to try and use if they're feeling overwhelmed working from home, what would you say? If you had to give them like one sort of tip to try and sort of make their to-do list seem a bit more manageable or their self-imposed pressure, shall we say, on the to-do list, what would your sort of takeaway tip be?
Oh, don't go and work for this bloke I read about on the news this morning.
Oh, okay.
Right. Absolute arse. Am I allowed to say arse?
You are, yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Swear away.
So, he likes to monitor the productivity of his staff working from home so closely that he gets screenshots. He has software to take. You've obviously got the mouse tracker and everything, but software to take screenshots of what they're doing, so he can monitor them constantly.
Wow.
Yeah, don't go work.
I was going to ask about this. Yeah, I was going to ask your opinions on this because I saw this as well and kind of briefly scanned it, and it's just like such a mad concept. And obviously, self-employed, don't have any accountability, so it's fine. But I was going to ask you kind of what your thoughts were on that as a system, because it mentioned in the article as well that kind of software was becoming more and more popular, and it's becoming more required or demanded by people who are now working from home. And I can't see that going away anytime soon, as kind of managers want more accountability from their staff, but without, in my kind of mind and reason. But
I think if you're working to your outputs and agreed outcomes, it doesn't matter so much what you're doing and when. Now, there's certain things where if you've got a 9 a.m. team meeting and everyone can make it, there's no reason why they can't, then everyone should make it.
Yeah.
Now, if you've got childcare, that's different, but that's a pre-agreed change. Whereas if I know you're going to record a podcast and it's going to be delivered, signed, sealed, metaphorically, by 5 o'clock on Friday, does it matter when you did it?
No.
If you did it at 4 a.m, I don't care. Well, ish. But, there's a well-being aspect. But it really shouldn't matter if people are achieving what they say they are. But the input then is another measurable which is now taking over. So if you can then monitor what people are doing, you can monitor their results or predicted results. So there's ways and means, really. If you have a very human attitude as a leader, then it's absolutely fine. Pre-agreed, what should you be doing? Are you achieving? What are the blockers? All that sort of standard stuff. But when it comes to running employees like machines, I do disagree that that's sensible. But this guy's business, he might need to have very, very specific measures of his inputs, but I can't think why. I think he's just odd, which is why
I can't think of any reason why it would work. As in, I think the only time I've ever been monitored on attending and leaving a workplace, as I say, was a shift where it physically made sense.
But I think this is a digital shift. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, he's got a terrible business. I can tell you that without even knowing what he does or anything, because anybody who measures people arriving and leaving an office is running a terrible business, start to finish. I mean, even a global firm that's still measuring attendance is just managing their business slowly into decline, without a shadow of a doubt, because it isn't a motivator. And if that's what you're measuring, then that's what people will use to motivate. So they then, in my mind, wouldn't be motivated by achieving the task. They're just motivated by making the task take as long as possible, because they're being measured for attendance, not outcome. So therefore, all you do is you expand the task to fill the time. So it's completely counterproductive, as you say. It's like if you've got to deliver a podcast by the end of the week, and it takes you 2 hours, brilliant. But if it takes you 10 hours, well, then that's what you need to be measuring, not whether you did it between 9 and 5. It's got to be the kind of amount of time and effort it took you, the amount of expended work perhaps is worth measuring, so you can balance it across a team, obviously. But the actual attendance time, particularly with working from home and managing childcare and baking and washing and doing all the things that everybody has to do in their homes, it to me feels like a completely alien concept, I guess. But then I guess maybe those people are all secretly, like
neurotic.
Well, just
insecure.
Or all of his staff are actually doing 2 other jobs. Because they can. Because they're like, this guy only cares if I'm here from 9 till 5. He doesn't actually measure what I'm doing, so I can do 3 jobs. Because he can. That software only measures 1 tab, and I've got 2. You know what I mean? Like, you're just going to encourage people to find other things to do. Because if they've got to be there 9 till 5, they'll set up another business. You know what I mean? They'll just start doing something else.
Just idling.
I hope they do.
I've also seen one which I thought was absolutely superb and inspired, was someone got their phone and just recorded them looking at the screen like this and sort of taking notes, and they made an hour-long video, and then they set up a screen, like a hook for their webcam, and put the camera in so it looks, every time the camera looks, you can just see this video on their phone.
No way.
And then they can just do what they want.
Brilliant.
So
wow.
I would bet that his staff are just doing that.
I really hope they are, actually.
Yeah.
There's a bit of me that really wants to see that happen now.
Yeah.
But I've never been motivated in an office job. When it gets to 4 o'clock and you're like, right, a bit longer, I know I'm going to bust out the really exciting thing I need to do. I can't wait. I've got an hour and 30 minutes exactly until I have to leave. I'm going to do that now. You just sit there going, oh, God, what can I do to just push around for a bit? And then I'll do it tomorrow morning when I'm feeling productive.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Or working from home so I can actually get it done. You kind of, it's a struggle. And I think if I give you, one tip, it's to just structure your day according to when you're productive and when you have the most energy.
Yes, that's really good.
So
actually.
really do the big thing in the morning when you're fresh, get it done, And by default, you're winning already because you've done that one thing and everything else becomes easier. But then it just means you can kind of block out your time more sensibly and put in half an hour to do those little odds and sods emails, but don't let them take over.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting idea. I think the finding when you're productive takes a time, definitely. But I think also if you're not feeling it that day, then just push it back a bit and don't feel guilty about it, I guess, is that.
I used to work with a guy and I thought it was bonkers. I mean, he got fired eventually, so I think it was bonkers. But I reflect back and he was really senior and he technically knew his stuff, but he just wasn't a team player, as we call them. And when he had to do some technical drawing, he'd say, "Oh, it's quite a big task. It's sort of 2:00. I'll do it tomorrow. So what I'll do is I'm going to go home now." All right. Again, you're here 9 to 5. That's the sort of mantra. Yeah, but I'm not going to achieve it, so I just go. And then what I'll do is I'll do it tomorrow. I like that. Don't think everyone else is getting it.
Wow.
It's just to be so bold.
It's
It's like, no,
definitely
I'll just go and have a glass of wine at home because I'm not going to do much this afternoon. It's like, did you want to do yourself out of a job then?
Wow. I mean, that's fair enough. But like, if you're rocking up at 9 and then being like, do you know what? I'm not in the mood today. I'm going to go home right away. You're never going to get anything done. I think that's key, isn't it? He's got to relate
got
to an
himself fired.
outcome. Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah. Or you're encouraged to find an alternative employment opportunity.
That's exactly what it's called.
Yeah.
He was near retirement, so I think he was doing everything he could to just see how far he could push it.
Absolutely.
And he just would.
Brilliant. Kind of brutal honesty as well. I've just been like, no, do you know what? I'm sorry, but I don't do that now. Goodbye.
That was it.
It's like, oh, well, there's no recourse you could take there. It's just simply
I don't do
goodbye.
afternoons.
Yeah. Oh, that's the dream, I think. That's the kind of the end goal of productivity is to not do afternoons.
Yeah.
I do know one person who checks their emails on Mondays and Wednesdays,
Yeah.
Right.
and everything else is done through Slack.
Oh, okay.
So that's
That's
good
still
because the
pretty good.
people in the team have his Slack, and his customers know that they can email him on Mondays and Wednesdays, and he gets responses out.
Crikey.
Yeah,
It's like
that's the
opening your
dream.
post, isn't it?
There's also
That's
someone I
cool.
know who has an email form where you have to pay to send the email. It's the only way you can get a message through, and it costs you a guaranteed response, but it is you have to pay to.
It's quite extreme.
I mean, it's a good money spinner, right? I mean, imagine if.
Wow.
I mean, it would certainly knock email marketing on the head, wouldn't it? But
So when we get that
Yeah.
notification at midnight from Zoom saying, "Hey, we've taken your money for the month," which obviously all the world now gets,
yes,
then what? They're not going to pay us. Maybe there's a plan.
I'll tell you what. We might have hit the productivity idea of the year. This is chargeable email. You just send someone an invoice for how many emails they've sent you that month.
Yeah.
I like it.
Or how many minutes on Zoom you've spent with them as well. That might be quite a good one.
Yeah, that could be
Do
another good one.
pay per minute Zoom calls so that, you know.
Yeah. Maybe we should all just set up like 0875 numbers.
Yes. It's basically it, but yeah.
Yeah.
We could do. I
Nice
turn
start.
most of my notifications off.
Yeah.
If
I
you
think that
text
does
me
seem
or
to be
phone
key.
me, yeah, if you text me or phone me, you want me fairly instantly. That's obviously going to be on. Emails, I just leave the little red button. WhatsApp, I don't like the push notifications.
Yeah.
Drives me potty. I don't care what people do on Instagram. I like using Instagram, but I
Yeah.
don't want to be constantly told what's happening on the pub quiz in WhatsApp and
Yeah. Yeah.
Instagram. And all of these, suddenly they're pushing everything at you. So
Yeah.
I keep them really quite quiet.
We used to have a developer who referred to his phone as the distraction factory. And it was just, that's what it was. So he just had his phone off. Not off, but like on silent in a drawer for 3-4 hours of the day.
Yeah.
It's the only way to get stuff done. But,
Even putting all the icons onto the second page.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so simple, but only have the really important ones on the front and all the social media and crap
Yeah.
on the second page. So you actually have to go out of your way to go into it.
Yeah. The true visionaries amongst us who are using the Google phones will know that there's an unlock count you can set.
Yeah.
So every time you unlock the phone, it gives you a number displayed for like a second. It fades away, and that's how many times you've unlocked the phone today. And it's terrifying, but it's really effective because you just go, 35.
Yeah, I
Put
don't
that
need
down.
that now.
Yes. Yeah,
Way
no
more
wonder I'm
than-
not getting anything done.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well, thanks very much for joining us today, Emma, and thank you very much for your productivity tips. I think
Thanks
we
for
can
having
all
me.
get some more perspective on exactly where we need to be focusing our time, and I'm going to endeavour to make sure my one thing to do every day is done at my productive time. That's definitely a habit I was aware of and have heard before, but have definitely fallen out of a habit of. So,
Can I let you into a secret though?
yes.
I've actually got a homemade loaf of sourdough at home,
Amazing.
cooling on the rack.
Oh,
Amazing. Amazing.
it's been a very productive day then, you see.
Productivity
Well,
sourdough.
That's what the bread maker did. So it did it itself. So I'm not taking all credit for it or
Fair enough.
time wasting or anything like that.
It's an outsourced sourdough.
Yeah, I outsourced it.
Yes,
Yeah,
multitasking sourdough. Yeah, doing a podcast and making sourdough at the same time.
I think the one thing I'd like to take away from this as well is your comment about being kind to yourself and just kind of going, actually, it's okay to not be productive sometimes. Everything's a bit shit. Just get on with it.
Yeah.
So that's my closing notes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that is a very good reminder, isn't it, of just being like, do you know what? This isn't your fault. It's happening to everybody, so just do the best you can.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Be
give
nice
yourself
to
a break
yourself,
every now and then.
Be nice to other people because the stress in the supermarket queues, you could feel it. All of that, there's a lot of tension. Just at the bare minimum, don't be a dick.
Like it. There it is.
Good.
That's the TLDR for this podcast. Don't be a dick.
Well,
Excellent stuff. Well, thank you very much for listening and watching. You can, of course, hit subscribe below on YouTube or on your podcast app of choice. And we will be having more guests joining us soon. So thank you very much to Emma for joining
Thank you.
us.
Yes.
And we will see you next time. See you later,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.